Hey, what's up? You're listening to Kicking It with Zen, a space for real conversations, real questions, and real life energy. This is my first episode, and honestly, I'm proud of myself for arriving here and deciding to start this podcast journey. I don't have everything figured out, but what I do know is that I've been called to speak, to share, and sit with life as it unfolds out loud. So wherever you are, however you're arriving, let's just kick it. So I want to start off each episode with a question, not because I have the answer, but because some questions are meant to be sat with. Today's question is, what do you do when everything you plan suddenly stops making sense and the version of your life you're building no longer fits? Let me ask that one more time. What do you do when everything you plan suddenly stops making sense and the version of your life that you're building no longer fits? So I want you to sit with that for a moment, because this question touches so many parts of life. It shows up in our career, our relationships, our identity, in location, and probably most importantly, how we see ourselves. And when this happens, there's usually this moment where pushing forward feels wrong, but stopping feels terrifying. So instead of rushing past that feeling, I want you to sit here with me for a bit. And if any of this resonates, just sit with the question and notice what comes up. And if this feels uncomfortable, that makes sense. That means you're in the right place. So sometimes when a plan stops fitting, we try to immediately label it as confusion or failure, when really it's just a signal. You may not know what doesn't fit yet. You might just feel the friction, and that's okay. And I'm asking this question because I'm in Bali right now, 3 years to the day after I first arrived. I didn't plan on coming back here. None of this was planned, and that's kind of the point. So, allow me to explain why this matters. I want to share a little bit of what exactly happened when I first came to Bali. When I arrived 3 years ago, I came straight from Los Angeles with a very, very clear plan in mind. I had taken a teaching English job, and no, that wasn't something I dreamed of doing. I had a full-blown career in LA. I had a business. I had spent 21 years building a life there. But something in me wanted a reset, not because I was running from anything, not because I was escaping my life. I had lived in LA for 21 years. I'm American. I'm from New York originally, Jamaica, Queens. But LA became my home. My spirit was just asking for something completely new. So I purged my life in LA. I got rid of everything. I sold what I could sell, but honestly, I gave most of it away. And honestly, it felt pretty liberating. Terrifying as fuck, but liberating. And that teaching English job was not a long-term plan. It was never something that I was planning on doing for years to come. You know, I had signed a year contract, and in my mind, I was going to break it after 6 months. It was just a safety net. It was something to support myself, get grounded, figure out, how to live in Bali and just find my footing. But yeah, within the first week of arriving, the entire plan fell apart. The job wasn't the right fit. And that safety net didn't just disappear. I chose not to keep forcing something that didn't feel right. I arrived with one reality in mind, and within days, I was living inside a completely different one. It wasn't clean, it wasn't graceful, it was fucked up. I had just blown my entire life up. I felt like I had ruined my life, to be honest. I flew across the world to a country I'd never been to. And, being back here now, and I remember how fast everything unraveled. I was waking up here every day realizing the plan I came with wasn't real anymore, and that really messed me up. So I was at a crossroads. I could either force myself to stick with the plan because it paid me, it gave me something solid to hold on to, even if it wasn't ideal. Or I could let it fall apart without knowing what was coming next. I can talk about it calmly now, but back then I was scared as fuck. I broke down. I didn't feel grounded. I felt like I had nothing solid to stand on. I had dismantled my entire life in LA, my home, my routines, my friends, my family, everything that I knew, to come to a country that I'd never been to before, and I knew nothing. And all I could think was like, what the fuck did I just do? But I didn't avoid the feelings that surfaced. I allowed myself to feel it all. I cried with them. I slept with them. I sat with them. I moved my body with the feelings. A lot of times you see me dancing and twirling on social media, especially while I was living in Bali. And yeah, a lot of it was joy, but a good amount was just survival and a way for me to regain my sanity so I could function, so I could keep just being here. And I didn't allow myself to bypass the pain. I didn't try to spin it. I also didn't panic. But most importantly, I didn't scramble for the safest option. I didn't rush to replace one plan with another. I just paused. And for the first time in my life, I stopped. And within that pause, something shifted. And it was a feeling that I had never truly encountered before. Freedom. Since I wasn't trying to keep pushing and try to keep figuring out, okay, what do I do now? And I just stood in stillness, and I allowed myself to really hone in on what was unfolding. And it honestly felt bigger than me. And I almost to the point got clarity that, oh, this was the plan. This was the plan all along. And this is what I was actually asking for when I said I wanted a reset in LA. I just didn't know what that meant. And looking back on that time, there were a few things that really stood out for me. One of them is how much it hurt. How much it truly hurt to just pause. It hurt, but it felt good at the same time. And it didn't hurt because the plan failed. It was because the identity I had tied to the plan fell apart. It wasn't just about work, the job that I had taken. It was about who I thought I was going to be and what I thought I was going to be doing once I got to Bali. And I think we don't realize how much of our identity is tied to the future that we imagine in our minds. And I'm all about visualizing, manifestation, all of that. But it's the part of that we tie ourselves to. We almost become married to that visual or what we are manifesting, what we're calling into our lives. And that process of clinging to that plan that you think you need, that you're calling into your life. And if that never arrives or arrives in a different form, what do you do then, right? So, yeah. So when that future disappears, you're left asking, what do I do now? Where do I go from here? Like, what's next? And another thing I noticed when I was in this like process, in this crossroads, was that I should keep going. Like I almost felt guilty for stopping, because being from New York and LA, I'm conditioned to just keep moving, keep figuring it out, keep hustling. I used to pride myself on how much of a hustler I was, and I still am a hustler, but in a different way. But yeah, I didn't even realize how deeply wired that programming was in my body until it felt physically wrong, to stop. Like it felt like it was dangerous to rest or responsible to not fix the problem that had come up immediately, to find a solution. And what surprised me the most was how much I shifted once I didn't react right away. I stopped trying to control the outcome or predict what would happen next. I knew it wasn't working. Instead of forcing the plan or create a new one, I just chose myself, and that was truly powerful. I chose myself. And the biggest thing that really surprised me, and like when you hear the word freedom, you think, oh, nirvana. You're like, yes. But, freedom can be scary. It can be unstable. You're exposed. You're vulnerable. You're just like almost out in the world naked when you first, get that sense of what we speak on, what freedom is. And there was like no instant relief. There was no moment that everything just suddenly started making sense. The peace that freedom brings didn't come right away. It definitely came later. It came with continuing to move through whatever this was, this unknown, overwhelming new awareness that had come up from within me, that I was not going to bypass, but I was going to allow to move me through life in a different way. So if you're in something like this right now, if there's something that is surfacing in your life that, is calling you and it feels scary as fuck, and you feel like the plan that you have constructed or that you are forcing into your life and you're feeling called to let go, here's what actually helped me when everything felt like it was falling apart. And when the plan that I had thought in my own mind, I just knew it wasn't the right way to go. And there honestly was no plan. There was no option A or B. There was just stopping, being planless, right? So the first thing I had to do was be honest with myself. I had to name the crossroads I was standing at when I first came to Bali, and I realized that this is no longer an option and that I don't know what the other alternative is. And then I was just standing in the middle of the two. So, I had to really be honest. I wasn't trying to figure out what was right or wrong. I was just asking myself if I wanted to stay comfortable or if I was willing to be honest with myself. Are we willing to be honest with ourselves? Are we willing to truly hone in on what is being asked of us? Honestly, what we're asking of ourselves. So if it helps, ask yourself that. Am I forcing safety right now? Or am I choosing what actually feels aligned? Another thing that helped me was not rushing to replace the plan, as I've been speaking on. That pause, that stillness, that stopping was uncomfortable as hell, especially being from New York and LA, and we're just like, go, 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 right? So, but what it showed me was how much I relied on certainty to feel okay. How I needed something outside of myself to, to make it seem like, oh, okay, I'll be all right. But there was nothing there. There was nothing there. It was only me. I had to find that within my own self. I had to figure out that internal knowing and be okay with that. And that had to be enough. So sometimes the pause is the work. Honestly, it's usually the realest work that you could ever do within this life journey. So I also had to slow my body down before making decisions. Clarity doesn't come from panic. It comes when our nervous system is able to settle. And the last thing that really shifted things for me was stopping myself from calling what was happening failure. A plan falling apart isn't failure. It's information. It's telling you something isn't working anymore, even if it worked before. So if you're listening to this, I want you to ask yourself, what plan in my life feels forced right now? What would it look like to pause instead of push? Let me say that again, because I got tongue-tied. What would it look like if I chose to pause instead of push? You don't have to answer that right now. Let's let the question find you. Let the answer find you. It might happen today. You may get an epiphany in the shower, who knows, in your car, maybe in a few months from now, maybe in a year. But it's so important to start asking ourselves questions and not feeling like we need the answers, but being able to sit within that space between the two. So I don't have the answers today. I just wanted to open the conversation and honestly launch this podcast. Yay. If this conversation landed for you, sit with it. You don't need to rush your way out of uncertainty. And if you want to keep up with this podcast, you can watch the video version on YouTube and subscribe there. I appreciate your support as I embark on this very scary journey that I've been called to do. And I just want to say thanks for being here, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.